Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this special look back at Thought Bubble 2025 with myself, Brian Nugent, and I am joined by, once again, Antonami.
Hiya.
Hello.
So, for those who are into comics but have been living under a rock, the Thought Bubble Comic Festival took place, as we are recording, it took place about 3 days ago? 4 days ago?
3 days ago, yeah. We're
Yeah.
Wednesday now, and it was Saturday to Sunday, so.
Saturday to Sunday, yeah, which is part of the Thought Bubble Festival. So the three of us went along. Well, three of us and young Cara, who celebrated her birthday during Thought Bubble. So
as is tradition.
So once again, happy birthday, Cara. So we just thought we'd have a brief chat about how we found the convention and some of the stuff we picked up. So if you wanna, who wants to go first?
Yeah, so I found it I kind of drove up the M1 for a bit, and then turned into Harrogate.
Just.
I'm not with you because of your comedy, right?
It's clearly because it's no other.
Clearly.
Anyway, so yeah, so we did our usual thing. We went up Friday and stayed the night before. Although, as is not traditional, we were in different venues this time because Amy and I were in the Premier Inn, which is just sort of by the convention centre, but you actually were even closer. You were literally across the road from the entrance.
I know. It's one of those things where you actually stay somewhere and they sort of say on the blurb, we're right near the convention centre, whatever convention it is, and you sort of go, yeah, of course you are. But no, they were right near the convention centre. I could literally see the entrance from my second floor window, which was great.
Yeah, it was a good location. It would have only been made better if they didn't have the metal railings across the road, literally opposite. So you could have sprinted across the road.
I know.
But yeah, I must admit, I know people struggle a little bit with Harrogate as a location for it because it's a bit out of the way. It's like, Leeds is easier to get to than Harrogate, but actually the convention centre itself and the fact there's so many places to stay around, and if you want to go out to eat or you want an Uber, there's plenty of stuff around to get food delivered or to go to have food. So for me, it's like quite an ideal sort of venue in that sense, and it does kind of feel like it's an all-in-one situation when you're that close. So I really like the venue as a whole, and I think they do a really good job generally as well. We'll get onto it, I guess, in a little bit, but managing that queue, especially on the on the Saturday morning when you've got people coming in and they have people going out down the queue before the doors open, making sure people have got wristbands so there is no delay getting in. And they were doing that again this year. The one thing they did this year that was a bit different was they actually had barriers set up to almost like control the flow a little bit down to the two doors. But yeah, I think again, organisation for getting in and stuff, I think was great. And for me, the venue I really like. I understand for a lot of people it's a bit out of the way and a bit more difficult to get to, but I think it stands up. And the fact that there's so many guests there, so many creators there, and so many exhibitors and people hitting the floor just does show that it's clearly doable for a lot of people.
Yeah, I thought I pretty much echo everything you said. I think the way they controlled the queue was even more important on Saturday, given how atrocious the weather was both Friday and Saturday, to be fair. Sunday was a lot better. Although it did sort of ease up a bit as Saturday went on. But I think it goes to show, I think, the size of the place. I know I'm getting on a little bit in years, but it's Wednesday and my legs still kind of hurt.
Yeah, it's grown. Year on year as well. Because it used to be just the 2 halls in that place, but now it's 4 halls and they're full of stuff. And they're not small halls. It's not like 4 living rooms. It's like they're proper exhibition halls, kind of small hangar size, I guess. And they're full, and the layouts. And this is something I think we commented on during the day. It's kind of the first 2 halls are laid out really well because you kind of got just aisles up and down. But then you get into the 3rd and 4th hall and you suddenly wind up with almost like intersections and cross streets, and you sort of get confused as to where you are. which made it a little bit more awkward, I think, sort of layout-wise for me.
Yeah. I got a bit lost sometimes. And once I got past like the second hall, I was a bit sort of like, where am I again? And I'd literally like turn around and I'd feel like I was in the middle of nowhere, which sometimes made it a little harder if I was going back to either see someone or potentially look at a comic that I'd seen earlier. I think there were a couple of comics I'd seen in the first, my first sort of run through that I thought I might go back and check out, but I couldn't find them again.
Mm. Yeah, what about you, Ames? What's your sort of general overview?
I liked it. I didn't like the entry. I don't know if they did the scanning this year on the Sunday like they normally do, because it was raining and because we came in later. So a big bunch of the queue had died down by then. I didn't like that entry with the bars going all across the front, because it kind of made me feel cattled as I went into like the main entrance part. It's hard because I always liked Leeds and I liked the location of Leeds, and yeah, there was a lot about Leeds I liked, but Harrogate, it is a better convention space, in my opinion. But you're right about what you said about the first two halls being brilliant laid out and well thought out, and then the third and fourth hall being a bit different. And I think part of the issue, because I've been thinking about it a lot, is like the children's Bubble Boy space was in that third hall. So it meant that everything felt a little bit disjointed because you entered that third hall, which is where you had a lot of the children's things, which were absolutely fantastic. And it's always nice how many all ages creators and all ages things they've got going on. But you had the likes of Puffin Books, who had their stand with those full walls up that just meant everything got a bit too tight and squished. And that's what was really difficult in that respect. And then the fourth hall didn't really, like all other three halls felt like there was almost like a theme running through them. And then the fourth hall didn't feel like that. The fourth hall kind of felt like almost like, oh, and here's everything else. Which, I don't know, I kind of like the idea of like the themings of the halls and stuff. I feel that works really well. It was nice to see more places to just sit down this year. The halls 2, 3 and 4 all had seating. I don't know if you noticed. But there was just places to sit, which makes a big deal when you've got someone who needs a timeout. And I'm a big fan of having Bub's Lounge upstairs for people who need sensory breaks. That's something that I wish conventions did everywhere, because for our household, having that time where we can just sit down and be quiet it makes conventions possible. It wouldn't really be possible without having those. So there's a lot of things I liked. It's always good seeing creators that we see every year, and it's nice seeing some new creators. There's so many friendly people there. It was absolutely lovely. And it felt good. It was a good weekend. Sorry, I'm aware I've just rambled.
No, not at all. I thought so the Bub's Lounge you were talking about, was that where I went in to meet you after I'd done my
that's the like the sensory hall.
That was really good. Also, I've got to give, I didn't use it personally. I went in because I was being interviewed by interview/chat with Jimmy Aquino of Comic Newsider. And we went in there and he sort of said to me, like, there's this space, basically, if you're there covering it for a bit of podcast, whatever, press, you can book it out for like recording. And so we went in there, and it was a really good space. And there was someone in there the whole time we were recording, which was fine. She kind of joined in a little bit. And it was just sort of Jimmy and I in there. And it was just a nice, quiet space. Jimmy had like his recorder with him. We were able to, I think we must have recorded from, I don't know, it must be almost an hour that we were in there. And I actually thought to myself, if we were to go next year, I would definitely, what we're doing now, I would do at Thought Bubble in that room.
Yeah, because we did, you did say to us beforehand, should we book a slot to do something? And we had intended doing this probably at yours in the evening kind of thing. But actually, maybe, as you say, sort of like late afternoon. Have a slot
I think so.
on Saturday and do it there, because it kind of almost like you're still in it and you're in the zone to actually do the recording. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
And I think having that press space is something that a lot of cons don't do. They don't have the press space. They don't have like the Bubs Lounge, which is, as Amy says, brilliant for the kids, but also they don't have the kids area. And that was one thing, actually, I was a bit disappointed with this year, was the actual kids area in that third hall. And it was partly, as you said, Ames, because it was sort of almost hidden by the Puffin book stand, because you kind of came through and there was no sort of real direction to that separate area. And usually it's like in the middle of the hall and you could see it straight away as you go in. But I think all those things in concept and generally in execution are really, really good. And it's something that I know we've talked about trying to do at LFCC when we've been organising that, which is having dedicated space for people to just chill, basically. And it's a bit harder in Olympia because there aren't those sort of like separate floors with separate rooms and stuff currently. But there is space where you could have, at the very least, like a breakout area with stuff for kids and that kind of thing. So I think that's one way that football really do lead the way in a really positive way is for that. Was that Steve or Trevor? Hi, or was it Tia?
No, it's both Steve and Trevor, but Steve is one who's making noise.
Hi. But yeah, no, I really appreciate those things, and I think that's something that every convention should be thinking about doing, or, as a regular thing. I think Thought Bubble are really leading the way on that, and I love it.
Yeah, I agree. And also as well, I want to give a shout out to all, obviously I can't name everyone, but all the sort of exhibitors that were there, because it was a real, it's such a great atmosphere. And as like a sort of fellow creative, it's hard to not go to something like that and not come out feeling inspired, which I did. And then you get that sort of slight con downer because you're not at the convention anymore when you sort of get home to the real world. But I had some fabulous chats with some creators. I kind of wished I'd had my that I'd recorded some of them, but I had a long chat with the team who do arcs. So that's Rory and Holly.
Mm-hmm.
I had a long chat with Chris Baldy, who does Space Captain of Space, Connor Ball and Lizzie Ball, and just I could sort of go on. But I just had lots of chats with people and met loads of people. It's just, like I said, it's just a really exciting place to be a creative, I think. And as you were sort of saying, before we move on to some of the stuff we picked up, the one, we said this before when we were looking at the debut books, although I was gutted that I didn't get the case book of Hawksmoor. Was it case book of the Brian Talbot book?
Yeah, is it sold out, or was it
it was sold out?
Yeah,
I was gutted about that. Again, the fact that take the debut books out, and given what I bought, I didn't actually buy any of the books that I'd mentioned because there was so much stuff there that I was kind of into. And like you said before, everything was just of a level of quality, which, one of them is I'm just looking at it now, it's a really beautiful hardback. And I thought years ago, you just wouldn't have got that.
No, that creative space, it's really moved on, and I love it because I've said before, I think I said last year when we were recording it, I'm a little bit of a snob when it comes to that kind of thing. If I'm buying something, I want it to look professional, and they all do now. Everything does, whether it's, or the majority of things when they're self-published, just the availability of the kind of professional printing, the quality of the art that people have got, the quality of the writing. It's just leaps and bounds from the old days of the kind of stapled together, almost like what would be a webcomic now kind of thing. Not that there's anything wrong with webcomics, they're great. But just for me to have on my shelf, I like to have a nicely presented book. And like you say, even the thought, even 5 years ago of having so I bought Armoured, which is volume 1, as it turns out, of 2. Yeah. But I bought that in hardback, and it was 25 quid, which was the special edition hardback as well, which has, admittedly, it's just dust jacket with a different cover, but it's a special edition. I'm not going to not buy a special edition. And you think even 5 years before COVID, getting a hardback for that sort of price from an independent creator was not something that happened.
Yeah.
And I just love it because it's like you say, you kind of go in, you see the quality of stuff that's there, and you just, even as someone who is what I call an armchair creative and someone who just wants to do stuff but never actually get around to doing it. Even I come out of it thinking I just really need to write my thing now. So yeah, I love it. I really do. To the point where we were talking about the Kindle Color Fast and stuff. I've actually bought a color fast Kindle so I can read comics on a Kindle in color now. So yeah, even that, even just wanting to read more comics is come out of it. So,
well, that's a nice segue into what we actually all picked up at the weekend. So, given the fact that Ant and I have been seemingly chatting away, do you want to give us your picks, Amy? What you picked up?
I didn't pick up much for myself. The only thing I picked up for myself was the Garden of Spheres book, which is beautiful, and I'm really glad I've got it. The In Search of a Lost Tea, I met the gentleman creating it, but he hadn't finished the artwork, so that wasn't there, which was disappointing. I was really looking forward to picking that up, and it wasn't finished, so it didn't go to the printers in time. And then for Kara, I did pick up the Mayamada book, the Origins. Origins Against All Odds. I've picked that up, and it's now in Kara's school bag for her to read this week. And then another book I've picked up was the first 3 issues of After Honor, which is their A4 issue size. It's by Jen Stalins, and it's some form of wolf story by the looks of it. So it's the story of like a wolf pack, and Kara's really into that, animals and that sort of thing. So she begged me for those, so I picked them up. And then I also picked up a print of a couple of prints of Baldur's Gate characters for a friend from, I can't remember their names. They're the people who did the Cooking with Monsters books that you picked up, Anne.
Oh, is that who you got them from?
Yeah, that's who I got them from. So
okay,
yeah,
cool.
So I picked those up for a friend because they love Baldur's Gate, so it made sense to get them a little treat. So yeah, so I didn't pick up much, but I am excited about what I did pick up.
Okay, and
so yeah, for me, so I was just going to say actually on the Gardens of Spheres thing, that's one thing that I do have a little bit of criticism of the event for, which was there was a really large queue for that because they weren't there in the morning, so a lot of people would come back in the afternoon on Saturday to get the book signed. And there was no control from that queue, even though there was a Thought Bubble representative 2 tables down because it was at the end of that 4th hall. And it blocked out, Rachel Smith, Paul Cornell, and another creator. They just, people couldn't get to them. I was shouting over a queue of people to talk to Rachel, who's a friend. And they basically, she had to go away and take a bit of a time out for a bit and then come back and actually go and ask someone to control the queue a bit, which was a little bit of an issue. And we've had that issue at Thought Bubble sometimes, but you need to be on it and you need to make sure that exhibitors are getting their dues, kind of thing. But that aside, so I picked up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so 7, I guess 7 lots of things in total. So 1B I got for you, which was from the 77 stand.
Yes.
Which was a collection of, I can't remember what it was. Was it The Bodies?
No, the Bogeyman.
The Bogeyman, and it's I think it's from a while ago, isn't it? But it just looked right up your street, and I thought, yeah, I'll grab that for you while I'm here. Especially being as fair play to them, they gave me a lovely deal on that book, so I couldn't say no to it. But yeah, also I did pick up 2 of the 3 things that I'd spoke about beforehand in the debuting books. One was the book of essays about the creation of the Ultimate Universe, which is one of the things that got me into comics. And I've got to say, I really love this for the price, especially. And it will be available, I think, on eBay. I'll check with the creators before when I do the actual review. But I'm sure they said he's going to publish it through or sell it through eBay because they sort out all the shipping fees and stuff. But the quality of the paper is amazing in it for the price, and the print quality is fantastic. loads of interviews with creators from, Warren Ellis, Mark Bagley, Bill Gemas, who was the kind of like the architect behind the whole series, and lots of other creators. And I love behind the scenes stuff. And as I say, this was a series that really got me into comics as a whole. So I'm, really excited to pick that up and get through it. I also picked up Armored Volume 1, which I mentioned, which again, lovely chat with the creators of this book. Really nice guy. American. I hadn't realized they're American until they actually show. Hey, we heard their voice, but then they showed us a piece of artwork where they've drawn someone driving with the steering wheel on the left side of the car, and it's set in the UK. Well, it wasn't meant to be originally, but it wound up being set in the UK. So yeah, that was amusing. But yeah, again, really looking forward to reading that. As I say, I did think it was a complete series, but he did say it'd been left with a bit of a cliffhanger, and I have noticed on the spine it does say Volume 1. So, having said that, we'll see how it goes, and I'm really looking forward to reading it because the art is fantastic in it. I also picked up something, B, that you mentioned a bit ago, which was Space Captain, Captain of Space, and that was mainly on your recommendation.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to reading through that. And again, the quality of that as a, an independent kind of like published book is fantastic. And the presentation, the design is amazing. And then, as you said, Amy, I picked up Cooking with Monsters Volume 1 and 2, which published by IDW. But essentially, it's kind of like sort of a manga-ish style, kind of like half Western, half Japanese sort of style of art. And it's about a culinary school in a fantasy land, and the students are learning to cook, which I love cooking, and also fight monsters. Book 1 being the beginner's guide to culinary combat, and book 2 being harm to table. And I kind of thought these are great for me and Cara because they're all ages, so there's something we can read together as well. So those are my main picks. One thing I did pick up, not comic related as well, is on Sunday as we were leaving, I was passing a stall, and it was a guy he'd basically got some homebrew stuff for Dungeons and Dragons. So Amy has recently started playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I've been roped into DMing for the family. And he had, for the price, some amazing little books. So I got 2 books. One was a guide to brewing, and it had some like custom drinks and custom ingredients in it. One was a herbology guide, which again had different plants and herbs and things that you can use in the game and what kind of effects they have. And then he had a beautiful deck of kind of magical item cards that you could hand out to players with stuff on, which were custom magic items, which was £10. And honestly, if Wizards of the Coast or any professional company were producing that same deck of cards at that same quality with the same level of art and thought gone into it, it would be at least 25 quid. And that's what I picked up.
Cool. In my whistle-stop tour of what I picked up, first off, I stopped by the Cine book stand, which was a little bit smaller than usual, and it didn't seem to have, maybe I've read more than I think I have, but it didn't seem to have as much new titles. But what I did pick up was Volume 2 of Harry Dickinson, The Court of Terror. And this, Harry Dickinson, the character is basically like an American-style Sherlock Holmes. But if you watch the old Basil Rathbone Sherlock Holmes from back in the day, it's that similar vibe. So I already had the first volume, which I read a couple of years ago, so I'm quite excited about picking this one up. And as always with Cinebook stuff, the art is glorious, and it's by Jean Ray. And the artwork is by Onfonio Caccio. Then, I think you were with me when I picked this one up. And this is Griff Gristle, Volume 1, The Boatman's Call, which is by... so it's written by Mike Sandbrook and Rob Jones, and the art is by Rory Donald. The letters are by Rob Jones. And we saw they had like a little kind of card to sort of market it on the stand, and that's what brought me over, because basically it said if you liked Hellboy, you'd like this. And the minute I went over and actually had a flick through the art, it looks, if you told me this had been drawn by Mike Mignola, I would have believed you. Mm. It's a very, very similar vibe to it.
Sorry, just read the first line of the blurb.
Oh, really? Okay. Gristle is the last line of defense against the dark denizens of the deep, a grizzled fisherman and reluctant hero. Griff battles supernatural forces out of the open waves. Yeah.
That's all you need, right?
That's all you need. And, I mean, I'm skipping ahead, but there's no bit where it says, armed with his trusty spear, gun gear, travelling aboard his vessel, the Betty, and brandishing a deep understanding of arcane magic, he faces off against spirits, eldritch horrors, and the nefarious cult of a strange connection to Griff and his murky past. I mean, it's got me written all over it. So I'm looking forward to diving into that. I was also gifted a review copy of Arx Proxima issue 1, which is by R.J. Collins and Natalie Marler. The art's by Eric Owen, letterings by Jemiah Lambert, produced by Holly Cameron. This is the Arx team, and their stand was really, I mean, their artwork is just beautiful on their issues anyway. But the cover is absolutely terrifying. I'll try and put the cover in the show notes. But it's basically a kind of woman, and it's got stuff growing out of her eyes and her head. But they'd actually made a 3D statue of it, which blew smoke out, which was on their stall, and it was just terrifying to behold, really.
They were asked to stop the smoke, weren't they?
Yeah. I'm not surprised. Terrifying. And lastly, Her Hard-Boiled Heart, which is by David Taylor. Now, I first met David Taylor at last year's Thought Bubble, and I then checked out his comic. I think it was called. I can't remember what it's called now. What's it called? I can't remember. If you listen, David, apologies. I can't remember. It was basically like a serial killer story, and the guy who caught him and stuff like that. And it was great, and I loved it. So he's got a new one out, which is called, as I said, Her Hard-Boiled Heart, which is kind of sort of more sort of spy and espionage, and beautiful hardback artwork. If I had to describe it, it's got a kind of, if you remember the comic Queen and Country back in the day, it's got a kind of similar art style to that, very sort of noirish, minimal use of colours, but the way the colours are used with black and white is, stunning. And again, to sort of like echo you, the quality of the paper is just lovely.
He was saying that's his kind of magnum opus as well, and that's the story he's been wanting to tell and longing to tell. Yeah,
so I'm looking forward to reading. This will probably be the first thing I read, to be honest. And he did me a lovely sketch on the inside cover as well of the main character. And that, I believe, concludes I'll look back at Thought Bubble. So before I round this up, do you guys have any last words on the show? Amy?
No, not really. Still need to make mind up if we're going next year or not. I think it just depends on family situations and stuff more than anything. But it still remains one of my favourite shows.
Cool. Yeah, I think for me, I mean, one thing we didn't touch on was the mid-con party. Maybe we'll mention that briefly next time when we do some reviews and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I enjoyed the show as always. I said to you before when I wasn't really looking forward to it until like the day before. But when you're there, it's hard not to just be engaged. So yeah, really good show as ever. Well done to everyone who kind of put it together, and thanks to all the exhibitors and guests for being there because everyone was fantastic.
So I echo both what you've said. I had a great time. I like you, and I was a little bit reluctant for various reasons, which didn't really have anything to do with the convention. But whilst I was there, the minute I sort of arrived, in fact, the minute I left you guys and was basically checking in to my apartment, I met Connor and Lizzie, and I think I was going upstairs, they were coming downstairs, and I think that just set off the weekend for me in a beautiful way. I was just like, right, okay, this is it. I'm going to have a great time, and I did. It was a great convention, and also shout out to Jimmy Aquino. We got to spend some proper time, it's been a while since we just sort of sat and actually talked, and we had breakfast together, and it was lovely. So well done, Thought Bubble, nicely done. And so we will probably return with a sort of third final episode. That'll probably be a little bit of time where we can then have a proper review of the stuff that we've read. Sound good?
Good to me.
Good for me.
Cool. So what remains to say is if you went full bubble, or if you didn't, and you've got any questions, or you've got any comments or thoughts on how you found full bubble, then you can get in touch with us at the geeks at geeksyndicate.co.uk, or you can find us on Instagram, Facebook. We've got a private Facebook group, so just do a search Geek Syndicate, knock on the door, and I'll let you in. We are all over the shop. So all that remains is for me to thank Ant and Amy, and to say bye all, and we will see you soon.
Bye.
Yeah, no, thank you, B, and talk to you all again. Thank you. Bye.